So what does this mean for a worker here on an H-1B visa? Let's bring in Anastasia Tonello, live from New York. She is first vice president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Why don't we start, though, with kind of framing this dichotomy? We had this piece from Beijing, China with the reform plan in place, making it easier for people to get visas. The U.S. going in the other direction. What does all of this mean?
Well, exactly. I mean, President Trump has used immigration in his campaign. It is a very decisive, divisive issue, and this is just more of that. I mean, the executive order in and of itself doesn't have much muscle. It does set a tone and it sets priorities, but any real action on immigration, any real changes to our immigration program would have to be initiated and followed through by Congress.
There's this headline in today's Washington Post that reads, "Disconnect on Hire American Pledge." The story goes on to point out that the Snap-on Tools headquarters, where he made this Hire American Pledge, is also home to workers here on those visas. A bit of irony, but also, I think, an example of just how widespread this is. So what's the lasting impact of this on companies and on these people coming here for new opportunities?
I mean, to put this in perspective, the H-1B visa is subject to a cap. There's 85,000 available every year. There's more that are filed than numbers available. So there are very few companies in the grand scheme of our workforce in the United States that are actually using the H-1B visa. But it remains a valuable tool. It's in fact the only tool that most U.S. companies have to hire skilled workers. The Trump Organization itself has used the H-1B visa. Most of his companies have filed for H-1B visas.
Interesting. So who's hurt the most?
I mean, if the program is run the way it is supposed to, there are safeguards in place. Anyone can make a complaint. There's public access file requirements and lots of things that have to be done. So really, if the system is monitored and the safeguards that are in place are used, workers should be protected. American workers should be protected.
You know, it's interesting. Earlier executive actions targeting immigrants coming to the U.S., these travel bans were challenged in court. Is that a possible avenue for companies in the Silicon Valley who rely on people who come and get these visas?
I mean, Silicon Valley has been very vocal, not just on the employment visas, but in immigration in general. I mean, there's been many movements within top CEOs within Silicon Valley. Not only do they benefit directly through their workforce, most companies, or many companies and entrepreneurs, have been founded by immigrants or their children. So there's a long history of immigration and the need for common sense immigration for the United States.
You mentioned there's a program cap. It was met 5 days into the enrollment period. That is the same. That's what's happened the last 5 consecutive years. What does that tell us about the enthusiasm for this program?
There's a need. There's a need for American workers to be able to hire foreign workers. And as I said, it's a very low number in relation to the workforce. American companies do need to hire top talents. When companies recruit from top universities, recruit through agencies, they're not asking, where is this person from? They're looking at the skills and the talent that they need for that role. And companies need to fill positions, and there are more positions than H-1B visas available. This year the number was down, and there's lots of reasons for that. I think a lot of the media attention on the abuses has prevented a lot of the outsourcing companies from using the H-1B in ways that it had done before, and potentially using it better. But there's still the need is higher than the available.
One would think that the people who are applying for these visas and these companies going after people with these talents, they do have a great deal of talent and filling a niche. Where do they go if they're not coming here to the United States? I mean, is this something where the United States loses an edge to other countries as a result?
Exactly, and I think in your report you mentioned a lot of positions are being automated, a lot of positions are being moved offshore. Many companies who aren't able to fill the positions in the United States will move to other countries with more welcoming immigration systems. There's companies that have moved their operations to Canada, and then of course to other parts of the world. So companies have to have their skilled workers, and they'll do what they need to do to make sure those positions are filled.
Anastasia Tonello joining us from New York. Thanks so much for your observations and analysis.